Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. Mystery Tiny Sculpture. A very small but important relic was recently uncovered in the ancient city of Abel Beth Maha, located in northern Israel. Engineering student Mario Tobia came across an intricately carved sculpture while on an expedition in 2018. The sculpture is a tiny head, complete with a beard, eyebrows, and detailed facial features. Scientists are saying it might be the head of a biblical king from 2,800 years ago. The sculpture is a fascinating find, to say the least. It was carved from glazed ceramic and is only about 2 inches tall. However, it was once part of a larger statuette, which was likely between 8 to 10 inches in height. And although the artifact is tiny, its implications are huge. Robert Mullins from Azusa Pacific University says it's a unique opportunity to gaze into the eyes of a famous person from almost 3 millennia ago. It's likely that the miniature sculpture depicts someone important, possibly a king, but nobody knows which one. The object was made between 902 and 806 BC, a time when Abel Beth Maha was on the border of 3 different kingdoms. The city was right at the intersection of Tyre, Israel, and Aram Damascus. Each kingdom was controlled by multiple kings throughout the 10th and 9th centuries BC. The statue could have been made to depict King Ahab of Israel or King Ethbal of Tyre, but there's many other candidates it could be modeled after. Researchers don't have the slightest clue who the sculpture really is, only that it's one of maybe a dozen kings that ruled during that time. Number 9. Fragments of an Egyptian goddess. At an ancient Spanish settlement, a fragment of an idol was discovered in August of 2022. Much like the mysterious head found in Egypt, this fragment belonged to a statue. The idol once depicted the Egyptian goddess Hathor, and it was crafted 2,700 years ago. It was uncovered by archaeologists in Salamanca, in the ruins of Cerro de San Vicente. Hathor was worshipped as the daughter of the god Ra, and she was the wife of the god Horus. But she wasn't just a consort for mightier male gods. She was a powerful being in her own right. She was the goddess of beauty, love, and pleasure. Hathor was also seen as the protector of women, which was one of the reasons why she was so popular. She was a big deal not only in Egypt, but throughout much of the Mediterranean, and apparently as far away as Spain. Her temples were cared for by both priests and priestesses together. What really baffled researchers is that the fragment of Hathor's idol shouldn't have been in Spain. At least it shouldn't have been there 2,700 years ago. That was long before global trade networks were established, and the Egyptians' influence was spread across the known world. Researchers believe the item wasn't traded by the Egyptians themselves, but rather the Phoenicians. It's possible that a Phoenician delegation may have brought the idol from Egypt as a trading item in order to secure diplomatic relations with the people of Cerro de San Vicente. Number 8. St. Paul's Tomb. In 2006, a stone coffin was discovered underneath the second largest basilica in Rome. Vatican archaeologists quickly announced that the coffin belonged to none other than the legendary St. Paul, Jesus' very own apostle. This was an astounding discovery because religious scholars have been saying for almost 2,000 years that Paul was buried underneath the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome. According to Christian tradition, Paul was beheaded in Rome during the 1st century AD after trying to spread awareness of Jesus Christ. He and the other apostles, following the crucifixion, made it their duty to spread Christianity across the world, and just like St. Paul, many of them succumbed to brutal deaths. It wouldn't be for 3 years until the Vatican finally decided they would scientifically test the human remains discovered inside the coffin. They used carbon dating to confirm that the remains dated back to the 1st century AD. The Vatican then made the official announcement that Apostle Paul's body had been discovered. However, not all archaeologists are convinced. The 8-foot-long tomb itself dates back more recently, to at least 390 AD, more than 300 years after Paul died. This means either the tomb belonged to somebody else, and the Vatican is lying, or his body was placed into the tomb at a much later date. It could also be that the remains belonged to somebody random, and were only passed off as St. Paul's to seem legitimate. Number 7. The Gold Pendant. A gold lotus flower pendant has just been discovered in a tomb in Cyprus. The tomb dates back to around 1350 BC, during the rule of Queen Nefertiti of Egypt. There were 2 Bronze Age tombs discovered in the city of Hala Sultan Tekke by archaeologists in 2018. They uncovered a whopping 155 human remains and roughly 500 funerary objects. The chambers were used to bury several generations of people, most likely the ruling elite families. We know this because of the ridiculous amount of grave goods that were uncovered. Excavation leader Peter Fisher said they discovered the remains of a 5-year-old child buried with a plethora of solid gold jewelry. Clearly, the people buried here came from powerful and wealthy families. But out of all the treasure, the gold lotus flower pendant is the most remarkable. That's because Queen Nefertiti, wife of King Akhenaten and the mother of famous pharaoh Tutankhamun, wore similar jewelry. If you found a solid gold pendant buried in the sand in Egypt, would you keep it or turn it into the authorities? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Archaeologists know that Nefertiti had a thing for the lotus flower. She often wore lotus flower pendants inlaid with gemstones. What we're seeing here is a potential fad that spread from Egypt and across the Mediterranean. Noble and wealthy families saw the way Nefertiti was dressing and what kind of jewelry she was wearing, and so they copied her. The tradition of setting fashion trends and copying what famous people wear goes back at least over 3,000 years. Number 6. Medieval shipwreck. Archaeologists discovered the remains of a mysterious vessel on the bottom of a lake near Oslo in Norway in November of 2022. According to researchers, it could be one of the oldest shipwrecks ever found in the country. What's even more bizarre is that the archaeologists found the vessel while they were trying to find unexploded ammunition from World War II. But what they found instead was a ship dating back to the medieval period. The boat is sitting at a depth of roughly 1,350 feet in a lake. Sonar images have shown that the boat is roughly 33 feet long and is made entirely of wood. The style in which the ship was constructed suggests it was built 700 years ago, during a strange time in Norway. The Vikings were all but a distant memory, with many Norsemen having already settled in Greenland, Iceland, France, and England. The days of pillaging and terrorizing coastal Europe were over. At this point in history, Norway was transitioning, and so too were their fleets. Maritime archaeologist Øyvind Odegaard says traditional Viking ships were being replaced by medieval ships, which were bigger, stronger, and given distinctive bows and sterns. Unfortunately, due to poor weather, the ship can't be pulled out of the water until next year. We know it's down there, but researchers just can't get to it yet. Still, everyone's extremely excited about the discovery, and if there's one medieval Norse boat at the bottom of the lake, chances are there could be more. Number 5. The Egyptian tramp stamp. Over the last few decades, archaeologists have stumbled upon tattooed mummies at burial sites throughout Egypt. What's odd is that the mummies with tattoos have mostly been identified as female. Scientists have debated what this could possibly mean, and the theories they've come up with are absolutely wild. Some have called them ancient Egyptian tramp stamps, while others say the tattoos had a lot more to do with childbirth and the ancient Egyptian gods. Researchers Anne Austin and Marie-Liz Arnett were working on a pair of tombs in 2019. One tomb contained the mummy of a woman with a tattoo on her hip and lower back. The other held the body of a woman with a tattoo in roughly the same spot. The first woman had a tattoo of the god Bes or Beset holding a bowl, which was a symbol of ritual purity. The other had a tattoo of the Eye of Horus and of Beset wearing a crown. This was a major breakthrough for archaeologists. They now believe that most of the tattoos ancient Egyptian women were getting on their lower backs were of the god Bes. Bes was a protector of children and was associated with pregnant women and childbirth. The Eye of Horus was a magical symbol of protection as well. It's now fairly obvious that ancient Egyptian women weren't just getting trivial tattoos. They were getting tattoos that they thought would protect them from dying while giving birth. Death during childbirth was far too common, and maybe tattoos of their beloved gods could help save their lives. Number 4. Roman soldier skeleton. A senior Roman soldier was sent on a doomed rescue mission 2,000 years ago. In the year 79 AD, when Mount Vesuvius erupted and destroyed the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, a soldier was sent to rescue anyone still alive. It was only recently that scientists uncovered the details behind his shocking story. His skeleton was one of 300 uncovered at the site of Herculaneum in the 1980s. At first, he was just believed to be another low-ranking soldier. However, researchers were able to confirm that he was an officer and that his duty was to evacuate the inhabitants of the destroyed city as they ran for their lives. According to archaeologist Francesco Cirano, the clues have always been there. He and his team always thought it was strange that the skeleton was preserved with his leather belt around his waist and a sword with an ivory hilt on his side. When Francesco and his team analyzed the belt and the weapons, they found them to have the trademarks of a high-ranking officer. For example, the scabbard of the sword was decorated with an oval shield, while his belt was decorated with images of a lion. This suggests an elite officer, perhaps even someone who served in the Praetorian Guard. But what was he doing in Herculaneum? His body and hundreds of others were found on a beach not far from the remains of a destroyed boat. Scientists believe he led a rescue mission to the shores of the city, desperate to rescue any survivors. But they got caught up in the fiery explosion of the volcano, and none of them made it out alive. Number 3. Medieval wedding ring. A British man was wandering through a field with a metal detector when he made a shocking discovery. David Board had already tried to become an expert metal detectorist in the 1970s, searching local beaches looking for treasure, but he never really found much. Then, in 2019, he decided to try again. As he patrolled the English countryside looking for lost relics, his detector started beeping. He dug around in the dirt and came upon a medieval diamond wedding ring in almost perfect condition. The ring will soon be going up for auction and could earn David almost $50,000. In an interview, David said that it's unlikely that another ring like it will ever be found again. It comes from the 14th century, and back then every ring was individually made and each one unique. You couldn't just walk into a jewelry store and get a mass-produced ring like you can today. The ring bears an inscription that says, "I hold your faith, hold mine," in French. It's made from 2 bands of gold with an inverted diamond set inside it. Experts were amazingly able to connect the wedding ring to a woman named Joan Brooke, who was married to Robert Cheddar in 1388. He was a wealthy cloth merchant and the mayor of Bristol, and he left Joan with a fortune after he passed away. Number 2. Ancient cooking techniques. The recent analysis of the oldest charred food remains ever found has revealed ancient cooking techniques. These techniques were used by Neanderthal chefs to make their food taste better. Dr. Seren Kabuku and his team of archaeologists from the University of Liverpool investigated Neanderthal diets by scanning ancient charred food from 70,000 years ago with an electron microscope. The food samples were found in Shanidar Cave in Iraq and Franchthi Cave in Greece. The results they found were shocking. The team was able to see with their microscope that Neanderthals used plants to garnish their meat so that it tasted better. They used wild nuts and grasses, along with wild mustard and lentils, to make bitter food more appetizing. At least that's what the researchers are thinking. All we know for sure is that Neanderthals and early humans were more creative culinary-wise than anyone could have imagined. Number 1. Mystery musket balls. Metal detectorists recently uncovered pieces of musket balls on the coast of Australia in November of 2022. It's now believed these scraps of ancient munitions were carried ashore by survivors following the devastation of the Gilt Dragon, a vessel built by the Dutch East India Company that sank in the 17th century. It's a shocking story of treasure and danger on the high seas. The Gilt Dragon was a treasure ship constructed in 1653. It was 137 feet long and weighed 290 tons. 2 years after it was built, the ship set sail for Jakarta, previously called Batavia, loaded with chests of silver. It also had a large cargo of various trading goods. However, before the silver could be sold, the ship hit a reef and wrecked off the coast of Perth in 1656. Out of the 193 crew members aboard the Gilt Dragon, only 75 managed to escape. Out of those 75 survivors, 7 were sent on a small boat to find help. But unfortunately, the other 68 crew members were never seen again. The wreckage of the gilt dragon was found in 1963. Over 10,000 coins were uncovered amidst the coral where the boat sank, which were subsequently handed over to the Fremantle Maritime Museum in Australia. In 2022, beach prospectors came across the pieces of ammunition, which had been covered in sand for 366 years. These musket balls were likely carried ashore by the 68 people who were never seen again, suggesting that they may have created campsites before vanishing into thin air. Thanks for watching! Which of these mysterious archaeological discoveries did you find the most fascinating? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!